Gentlemen, what if the most powerful window for restoring your blood flow, your performance, and your circulatory health isn't happening during your workouts or your meals or your supplement routine, but while you're asleep? And what if two specific vitamins, working through mechanisms most men over 60 have never had explained to them, are either completing that overnight restoration or quietly leaving it unfinished, depending entirely on whether your body has enough of them? Most men are focused on magnesium, and magnesium has its place. But what I'm going to show you today goes deeper than magnesium ever could, straight to the cellular and structural level of how your vascular system repairs itself while you sleep. I'm Dr. Emily Carter, a board-certified urologist with over 12 years of experience helping men over 60 restore blood flow, reclaim physical performance, and rebuild the vascular health that most of them were told was simply lost to time. I've worked with thousands of men who were doing many things right and still not seeing the results they expected. And in a significant number of those cases, the missing piece came down to two vitamins that almost nobody discusses in this specific context. Your body has more capacity than you've been told, and the hours you spend asleep are when a large portion of that capacity is either being realized or being quietly wasted. Before we go any further, do me a favor. Hit that like button and drop a comment below telling me one thing about your sleep quality or your morning energy that you've accepted as just normal, but that, if you're honest, hasn't always felt this way. I read those comments, and what men share there shapes exactly what we bring to this channel every week. Now, here is what most men are never told about sleep and vascular health. While you sleep, your body runs a restoration cycle that is, in many ways, more consequential than anything you do while awake. Blood pressure drops. Vascular repair processes activate. The endothelial cells lining your blood vessels undergo regenerative maintenance. Testosterone production reaches its daily peak, and in men with healthy vascular function, a series of nocturnal erections occur, 3 to 5 per night, that serve a direct physiological purpose. They deliver oxygenated blood to penile tissue, preserving the smooth muscle elasticity and vascular integrity that healthy erectile function depends on over time. This is your circulatory system maintaining itself, and it requires specific nutritional inputs to run at full capacity. When those inputs are missing, the overnight restoration cycle is compromised. The vascular repair is incomplete. The testosterone pulse is blunted. The nocturnal circulatory maintenance that protects erectile tissue doesn't run the way it should. And men wake up the next morning, having lost a restoration opportunity they didn't know they were losing, night after night for years. That is not an inevitable consequence of aging. That is a correctable nutritional gap. And today I'm going to show you exactly what fills it. The two vitamins I'm going to walk you through today are vitamin K2 and vitamin B3, specifically in its form as an NAD+ precursor. These are not obscure compounds. The research on both is substantial. What is rarely done is applying that research specifically to the overnight window, specifically to men over 60, and specifically to the question of blood flow and physical performance. Stay with me through both because the second vitamin carries a biological mechanism that I consider one of the most genuinely encouraging findings in men's vascular health research in the past decade. And the final section of this video, where I show you how these two vitamins work together, may be the most important thing you hear today. Let's start with vitamin K2. Most men who take calcium supplements or who take vitamin D3, which is an enormous number of men over 60, and rightly so, have never been told about the third member of that nutritional partnership. And that absence is, in my clinical experience, one of the most consequential gaps in the way men over 60 approach their vascular health. Here is the biology. Your body contains a protein called matrix GLA protein, MGP, which is the most potent known inhibitor of vascular calcification in the human body. Vascular calcification is the process by which calcium deposits accumulate inside arterial walls, making them rigid, narrowing their internal diameter, and progressively reducing their capacity to dilate in response to circulatory demand. It is one of the primary structural mechanisms behind the arterial stiffness that men over 60 experience as declining circulation, reduced exercise capacity, and diminishing erectile function. And here is the critical point. Matrix GLA protein only works when it is activated, and it is only activated by vitamin K2. Without adequate K2, MGP sits inactive in your arterial walls, present but unable to do its job. Calcium that your body is absorbing, calcium that is supposed to go to your bones, instead accumulates in your vascular tissue. Your arteries stiffen. Their internal diameter narrows. The circulatory responsiveness that blood flow and erectile function depend on is structurally compromised. And this process accelerates with age because K2 intake tends to decline as men eat fewer fermented foods, the primary dietary source of K2, and because the body's ability to absorb fat-soluble vitamins becomes less efficient over time. The Rotterdam study, one of the most important long-term cardiovascular nutrition studies ever conducted, followed over 4,000 adults and found that men with the highest vitamin K2 intake had dramatically lower rates of aortic calcification and significantly reduced cardiovascular mortality compared to those with the lowest intake. The effect was specific to K2, not K1. K1, found in leafy greens, supports blood clotting. K2 is the form that governs calcium routing in your vascular tissue. They are not interchangeable, and most men over 60 are getting almost none of K2 in their diet. Now here is where this connects directly to what happens while you sleep. The vascular repair processes that occur during sleep, the endothelial regeneration, the smooth muscle maintenance in erectile tissue, the arterial wall remodeling, all depend on a vascular structure that is flexible enough to respond to the repair signals your body generates overnight. Calcified arterial walls cannot dilate in response to nitric oxide. They cannot respond to the vascular signals that drive nocturnal erections. They cannot complete the circulatory maintenance cycle that preserves penile tissue health over time. K2, by keeping MGP active and vascular calcification in check, maintains the structural prerequisite for all of that overnight function. It keeps the road open so that everything else your body tries to do while you sleep can actually reach its destination. Emotionally, this is a mechanism that I find changes something for men when they truly understand it, because it reframes what they've been experiencing. The gradual loss of circulatory responsiveness, the changes in erectile reliability, the reduced physical stamina, the sense that the body doesn't quite answer the way it once did. These are not simply the dissolution of capability that comes with age. They are, in a meaningful proportion of cases, the downstream effects of a structural process that was allowed to progress because one activating molecule was chronically absent. That is not a verdict on who you are or what your body is capable of. That is a correctable condition. I remember a patient, Robert, 69, a retired engineer. Methodical man, had been supplementing vitamin D3 for years, genuinely committed to his health. He came to me puzzled because despite doing many things right, his arterial flexibility markers were declining, and his circulation was not responding the way he expected. When I explained the K2 mechanism, that without K2, his D3 supplementation may actually have been accelerating calcium deposition in his arterial walls rather than directing it to his bones, he was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "Nobody ever told me that D3 needed a partner." That is one of the most common things I hear when I explain K2, and it is one of the most important things men over 60 can understand about their vascular health. Practically, here is what the evidence supports. Supplement with 100 to 200 micrograms of vitamin K2 daily, specifically in the MK7 form, menaquinone 7, which has the longest half-life in the bloodstream and the most robust evidence for vascular calcification inhibition. Take it with your fattiest meal of the day, as K2 is fat-soluble and requires dietary fat for proper absorption. Always take it alongside your vitamin D3. These two work as partners, and neither is fully doing its job without the other. If you are on warfarin or any anticoagulant medication, speak with your physician before beginning K2, as it can interact with those medications. For men not on blood thinners, K2 at this dose is very well tolerated and considered safe for long-term use. One important expectation: you will not feel K2 working in the first week. This is a structural intervention. It works over months, protecting and gradually improving the flexibility of your arterial walls. The men who benefit most from K2 are the ones who understand that and commit to it consistently. Not because they felt an immediate response, but because they understood what was at stake and acted on it. That is what evidence-backed possibility actually looks like in practice. Now, vitamin B3 and its role in something called NAD+ restoration, which is one of the most significant findings in vascular aging biology of the past decade. Let me tell you about a patient named Marcus before I explain the mechanism, because his experience captures something important. 72 years old, former athlete, deeply frustrated when he came to see me. His circulation had declined to a point that was affecting his daily life in multiple ways: exercise tolerance, energy levels, sleep quality, sexual function. He had tried several approaches with modest results. When I introduced the NAD+ restoration protocol I'm about to describe, Marcus returned 3 months later looking noticeably different. Not younger, more present, more energized. He said, "Whatever this is doing, it's doing something real. I feel like my body is running cleaner." That is the experience many men describe when NAD+ levels are meaningfully restored. And I want you to understand exactly why that happens. Here is the biology. NAD+, nicotinamide adenine dinucleotide, is a coenzyme present in every cell in your body. It is the primary molecule through which your cells convert nutrients into usable energy. But NAD+'s role extends well beyond energy production. It is the essential substrate for a family of enzymes called sirtuins, sometimes referred to as longevity proteins, which govern DNA repair, cellular stress response, mitochondrial function, and critically for our discussion today, endothelial health. Sirtuins, when adequately fueled by NAD+, maintain the functional integrity of the endothelial cells lining your blood vessels, the cells responsible for nitric oxide production, for vascular tone regulation, and for the overnight repair processes that preserve circulatory health over time. Here is the problem. NAD+ levels decline dramatically with age. By the time a man reaches 60, his cellular NAD+ levels may be less than half of what they were at 30. This is not a background footnote. It is one of the central mechanisms underlying age-related vascular dysfunction, declining physical performance, reduced recovery capacity, and the compromised overnight restoration cycle we've been discussing throughout this video. Because NAD+ is the fuel that powers the repair enzymes that run while you sleep, a depleted NAD+ pool means the overnight restoration window your body opens every single night is operating with an insufficient energy supply. The repair crews are there. The work needs doing, but the power is low. Vitamin B3 is the nutritional precursor to NAD+. Your body converts B3 into NAD+ through a series of enzymatic steps. But not all forms of B3 are equally effective at restoring NAD+ levels in older men. Standard niacin, nicotinic acid, raises NAD+, but causes a flushing response that many men find uncomfortable. Nicotinamide, the non-flush form, raises NAD+ modestly, but inhibits certain sirtuins at higher doses. The two forms with the strongest evidence for meaningful NAD+ restoration are nicotinamide riboside, NR, and nicotinamide mononucleotide, NMN. Both are technically derivatives of vitamin B3. Both have been shown in human clinical trials to raise cellular NAD+ levels measurably in older adults. And both are supported by growing evidence connecting NAD+ restoration to improved endothelial function, improved mitochondrial efficiency, and improved vascular performance. Research published in Nature Communications demonstrated that NAD+ precursor supplementation in older adults improved muscle mitochondrial function and reduced markers of vascular oxidative stress. Research from Washington University School of Medicine found that NMN supplementation improved physical performance and metabolic function in aging subjects. And most directly relevant to what we're discussing today, research has shown that sirtuin activation through adequate NAD+ helps maintain the expression of eNOS, endothelial nitric oxide synthase, the enzyme your blood vessel walls use to produce nitric oxide during sleep and at rest. When NAD+ is depleted, sirtuin activity drops, eNOS expression declines, and your body's capacity for overnight nitric oxide production and vascular repair is fundamentally compromised. The overnight connection here is specific and important. Sirtuins align with your circadian biology. They are more active during sleep, doing much of their repair work during the hours your body is at rest. When you go to sleep with adequate NAD+ levels, you are giving those repair enzymes the fuel they need to complete their work. When you go to sleep NAD+ depleted, which most men over 60 are, without knowing it, that repair work is incomplete. The overnight window opens, the repair processes initiate, and then they stall because the energy substrate runs out before the job is done. Night after night, year after year. That is not aging. That is a fuel problem, and fuel problems have solutions. Emotionally, NAD+ depletion doesn't arrive dramatically. It is gradual and pervasive. Men describe a quality of diminishment that touches everything: energy, clarity, physical recovery, sexual vitality, without any single symptom being sharp enough to create urgency. It feels exactly like getting older, which is precisely why so many men accept it. But here is what I want you to hold on to. A significant portion of what feels like getting older is cellular energy insufficiency. And cellular energy insufficiency is addressable. That is not cheerleading. That is what the research on NAD+ precursors specifically and increasingly shows. The research is genuinely encouraging here. Genuinely. I want to tell you about another patient, James, 67, a retired contractor. He came to me describing what he called a dimming. Not illness, not a specific complaint, just a pervasive sense that everything required more effort than it used to and returned less. We introduced NMN supplementation at 500 milligrams daily alongside the other elements of the protocol. 8 weeks later, James described something that I've heard variations of many times in this context. He said, "I'm waking up before my alarm. I haven't done that in years. And when I wake up, I actually want to get up." That quality of readiness in the morning, that sense of the body being genuinely restored by sleep rather than merely enduring it, is what adequate NAD+ makes possible overnight. James hadn't lost his vitality. His cells had lost their fuel. When we restored the fuel, the vitality followed. Practically, here is what the evidence currently supports. For NAD+ restoration, supplement with either 300 to 500 milligrams of nicotinamide riboside or 250 to 500 milligrams of NMN daily. Both are available without a prescription. Take your dose in the morning. NAD+ metabolism has a circadian component, and morning dosing aligns best with your body's natural rhythms. Give it 60 to 90 days of consistent use before fully assessing your response. The changes are real but gradual. Deeper sleep, improved morning energy, better exercise recovery, and over time, meaningful improvements in circulation and physical performance that men describe as feeling like restoration rather than stimulation. If you prefer to work with standard niacin for cost or availability reasons, 500 milligrams taken with food produces meaningful NAD+ support. The flushing response, the warmth and redness that occurs across the skin, is a direct manifestation of the vasodilatory effect as capillaries respond to the dose. Begin at 100 milligrams and increase gradually over 2 to 3 weeks to manage the flush response. Many men come to regard it as reassuring confirmation that their vasculature is responding. Now let me bring these two vitamins together because their combined effect on overnight vascular restoration is greater than either produces independently. Vitamin K2 maintains the structural integrity of your arterial walls, keeping them flexible, free of calcification, and capable of responding to the vascular signals your body generates during sleep. Vitamin B3, through NAD+ restoration, fuels the cellular repair enzymes, particularly the sirtuins, that run those repair processes during sleep, maintaining endothelial health, supporting nitric oxide production, and completing the circulatory maintenance that preserves both vascular flexibility and erectile tissue health over time. K2 keeps the structure ready. B3 fuels the restoration. Together, they address the overnight vascular window in a way that neither addresses fully on its own. And here is what makes this combination particularly meaningful for men over 60. Both of these are inputs you provide, and then you let your body do the work while you sleep. You are not adding effort to your day. You are optimizing the hours your body is already spending on repair and recovery every single night. You are making sure that your body's nightly investment in its own restoration is not being made with an insufficient budget. Here is your action plan. Starting tonight, take 100 to 200 micrograms of vitamin K2 in MK7 form with your evening meal, always with dietary fat for absorption, and always paired with your vitamin D3 if you are supplementing it. Starting tomorrow morning, take 300 to 500 milligrams of nicotinamide riboside or 250 to 500 milligrams of NMN with your breakfast. Maintain both consistently for a minimum of 60 days. Alongside this protocol, prioritize sleep duration, 7 to 8 hours in a cool, dark room, because both K2 and B3 do their most important work in the context of adequate, quality sleep. Add nitrate-rich vegetables to your daily diet, beetroot, spinach, arugula, to provide substrate for overnight nitric oxide production. And keep moving. Resistance training and cardiovascular exercise are not optional additions to this protocol. They are what creates the circulatory demand that makes the overnight restoration matter. I want to say something directly to the men watching this who have been quietly accepting a version of themselves that feels diminished, who have noticed the declining energy, the reduced circulation, the mornings that feel less capable than they once did, and who have filed all of that under the category of aging and moved on. I want to challenge that acceptance with something specific. Your body opens a vascular restoration window every single night. It is already trying to repair, regenerate, and maintain the circulatory infrastructure that your quality of life depends on. The question is not whether that process is happening. The question is whether it has what it needs to complete the job. For most men over 60, it does not. Not because of failure, because of absence. Because two specific vitamins that process depends on have been chronically insufficient. That is correctable. That is within reach. You are not done. If this video gave you something real, a reason to invest in what happens while you sleep, give it a like so other men can find it. Drop a comment below telling me which of these two vitamins you were missing or which mechanism surprised you most. Share this with a man who has accepted decline when what he may actually have is a deficiency. And subscribe, because every week I bring you what the evidence actually says about what is genuinely possible for men over 60. I'm Dr. Emily Carter. Your body is working for you every night, running a restoration process designed to preserve your vitality, your circulation, and your capacity to live fully. Give it what it needs to finish the job. Take care of yourself, and I'll see you in the next one.